at Distributech 2023, one of the sponsors of these interviews, and these are interviews with thought leaders from around North America and the globe. Our sponsors are H2Scan. H2Scan is the leading sensor manufacturer for hydrogen sensing in a lot of different applications, in transformers, in battery room safety, in processes and safety, in industrial, and in the future hydrogen economy. So I want to thank our sponsors, and I want to thank all of our guests, and I hope you enjoy this interview. My next guest is a friend and a partner of APC Media. He is one of our strategic partners, Hassan Zaheer. He is the Chief Commercial Officer of Power Technology Research. They're an organization that we work with, and he's a contributor to our publications because you've got great research, man. I mean, when I want to know what's happening in the future, I always rely on you. So first of all, how did you get involved in research? How did you get involved in the power industry? Why Power Technology Research?
Thank you, Alan. You're too kind for the introduction. So I'm an electrical power engineer by education, and I realized long ago when I was deciding what to do with my life that this industry is undergoing a lot of change. And then the more I got into it, the more I realized that from a research perspective, today, or back in the day when we formed Power Technology Research, the research which was out there was not really incorporating a lot of the technical aspects that you need to think about when you think about the industry, right? Because it's power grid, it's very complicated. So we decided to form a company specializing in the power grid equipment research, everything inside and outside of substation, looking at transformers, switchgear, thinking about, how the industry is evolving and how everything is interconnected with each other. So that was the reason why we formed PTR in the first place. And I think the name came naturally, Power Technology Research. It was simple, easily understandable. The domain was available. So you decided to,
If you open a shoe store, you know what you call it? A shoe store, right? If you open Power Technology Research, you know what you call it? Power Technology Research. It's brilliant. And so let's get off of PTR because we're going to come back to it. But I want to talk right now about, you're here at Distributech, you've talked to a number of people, you guys are students of the industry. What do you see the biggest challenges facing the utility industry are? Last year at IEEE PEST&D and at Renewable Energy Plus, we did this kind of interview. The number one issue across the board was always the same. It was supply chain issues. Well, now we have those same issues because we're dealing with them, but we haven't mitigated them. We have labor issues. People can't get the people that they need, both at a high level and at a trades level. But we've got a lot of other issues that are going on because of change, as you said, change in the power industry. What do you think some of those issues are, as you've learned from this conference?
So I'll start from a technology perspective. Distribution grids are going through a fundamental change, right? When you think about distribution grids of 2 decades ago versus distribution grids now, there is EVs coming online, there is DERs coming online, the prosumers are becoming more and more active every day, right? And the distribution grids have to deal with it. And the solution are not so easy, right? It's easy to say, yes, of course, bring all the EVs on board, bring all the DERs on board. Yes, of course, we want more solar, but in reality, when you think about implementing the solution, there is so many complicated things to take care of that you have to create from a policy and regulatory perspective to actual technical implementation of the solution, something more coherent. And that's where I think today the biggest challenge lies for the utilities in the fact that they have to deal with the rapid change with which all of these technologies are coming, rapid speed with all of these technologies are coming on board. And traditionally utilities thought about 10-year planning cycles, 5-year planning cycles. And now, as we were talking before the interview as well, right, like even the forecasts on the equipment change very rapidly, compared to what you might have thought about 5 years ago, what's going to happen versus what actually happened, right? So the number one challenge is how do you basically make sure that you're keeping up with the pace of innovation and you're making sure that your network is up to date to actually incorporate all of these technologies. And that contain many forms, right? Like that could take a form of, yes, managed charging solution, for example, to make sure EV charging is, not burdening the grid whenever, there's a lot of load. That could take the form of demand response, for example. But then what's really the challenge today for the utilities is how do you integrate all of this together to make sure you're able to guarantee the reliability that you require from the grids, right? That's on the technology side. Another thing that it really came up in multiple conversations is, as you said, lack of talent. I think the power grid industry was not sexy enough for a lot of students to actually study 10, 15 years ago. And from what I hear is that a big portion of the knowledge how to design these systems, like going into that technical detail really lies a lot with the workforce which is retiring. So how do you bring in the new people to learn about these things? And it's a lot of on-the-job training. You could study electrical power engineering, but unless you're into the field. So I think another challenge is how do you make sure that the industry is really appealing for a lot of the young talent to come in. And I think that will happen slowly more and more because now even the young people realize that the key to energy transition, or a very big part of it, the backbone, is electrical grid. So that, to me, are the two key challenges. Like, how do you collaborate to make sure that the entire system is coherent, that solution is coherent, to make sure there is enough reliability, and how do you have people to basically work on those systems?
You kind of got all of the problems. You took them and you did them just like your reports. Because Hassan does regular reports, or PTR does regular reports. Sometimes he does it. Sometimes it's staff members that do it. We encourage them to be in every issue that we do, but they're in many, if not most. One of the other, because you mentioned something, and this is interesting. Planning is changing. The idea of doing 10-year planning is like hilarious. Seriously, you think you're going to be able to plan what's happening 10 years out? Now, you can do some of that, but as engineers, we tend to extrapolate. I love extrapolation. You give me a data point, I can't tell you anything about it other than it's a data point. You give me 2 data points, I can draw a line, right? You give me 3 data points, and I can saw it, right, a 10. But the massive amounts of data that we're throwing at these, fewer and fewer good engineers, and we're throwing massive amounts of data. Remember 3 years ago in the industry, at a show like this, IoT. Yeah. Every booth was selling IoT. There's not IoT anywhere, okay? 2 years ago, drones. There are no drones anywhere. Now, it's not that those technologies did not get adopted. They got adopted and they're being integrated. IoT is creating tremendous amount of data. Drones create tremendous, and that's going to be, in my opinion, one of the huge problems of you gotta keep the grid stable. You gotta keep it reliable, which means reliability of assets, keeping it from failing. It's aging. Lead times on new equipment are expanding. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in this industry if I weren't in this industry, right?
There is, so I was attending a press briefing earlier in the day at Schneider Electric, and there is something which was said by one of the Schneider Electric's panelists, was that we are taking the similar analogy that she created, which was brilliant, was that, we had these dial phones, like, I used some of them until they ran out. I'm sure most young people don't know.
I lived on dial, okay.
We're taking the industry from being the dial phones to an iPhone, to a smartphone. And it's a massive shift, which is for the good of everyone, but it's going to require a lot of effort to get there from the dial phone to the iPhone and all.
That's a great analogy. I wish I'd thought of it. Actually, I will use it again, and I will act like I thought of it. Right? Why not? I've never heard that before. Anyway,
yeah, it's a very good analogy. But I think that's what's happening in the grid as well, right? And going from dial phone to iPhone also means that there's going to be a lot of data, a lot of information. So how do you best utilize it? How do you make sure that you're getting the best out of your network with all of that information to optimize it as well and make sure you're able to integrate all of these technologies which are going to help us in energy transition, right? Because that is the end goal. That's where all the push is coming from, and we want to achieve those targets.
So two questions now. I want to move to PTR. The first question is, how would people here, I know how we use research that you do. I know that I've recommended you also for some custom research in the hydrogen economy, but how would people, if you were pitching me on how I should use your research, tell me how I should use it. How does it help me make better decisions?
So I think one of the underlying things, like the core of making good decision is the more information you have, the better decision you would make, right? And we see ourselves as providing a lot of the strategic information in the market, about the market, that will enable you to make faster decisions to kind of move forward and deploy your technology where it's most relevant, right? Because there are different applications, there are different use cases. Where does it make the most sense to take your product? Where is the biggest opportunity to take your product? What does the existing landscape look like? So what we can really help with is provide that information to make sure that you're able to get to those strategic decisions in a more informed way rather than taking a guess, for example, for the growth of your company. Because I personally believe that there is no way to get to energy transition without making it profitable, right? And if you're doing good business, that inherently helps you grow, but at the same time helps the overall energy transition as well, right? So that's why I think our information can help in terms of you making better informed decisions to kind of position your companies the best way.
So there's a show on TV, it's called How Things Work, or How Things Are. I love that show, okay?
Me too.
So how does it work? How do you get the information to help me make good decisions?
Yeah.
Now don't tell me the secret sauce, okay?
Yeah.
Or else I don't need you anymore. I'll do it myself. No, but how does PTR work that's unique and different? Because there are people that try to sell me, hey, buy a report.
Yeah.
What's different about PTR?
So I think if I was to get to just one value proposition, that would be that we are really technically well versed and our research represents that. When you think about doing research on power grid sector, and that was one of the reasons why we formed PTR as well, is that you need to understand the grid. You need to understand how the systems interact with each other, right? When you think about transformer, the switchgear goes hand in hand if you think about substations, right? When you think about substation automation and how it's evolving, you think about control next to it, like because it's everything is interconnected. So PTR is unique in a sense that every single person who does the research on the market side of things is an electrical engineer themselves as well. So they really understand the technologies very well, and we build that into our research. Not only that, we do a lot of primary research with the different industry partners. Like we're speaking to a lot of utilities around the world, we're speaking to a lot of EPCs around the world, to industrial customers around the world. And that's where we are able to speak to engineers in their language to get the latest and greatest trends and their pain points that they're thinking about, which keeping them up at night, and try to build that into our analysis, which then is really helpful for the guys who are trying to target these segments. So I would say, summarizing that, like the one value that we bring is the technology, like technical understanding that we bring to the market analysis.
Which is very unique, because a lot of them are just data things, fill out a form and do data as opposed to understanding.
And that's why we only specialize, sorry to cut you, only specialize in the power grid sector, because that's where we think we are able to bring the knowledge that we have on the electrical equipment, on how the systems are working, to the analysis that we provide to our customers.
So we've kind of talked about where the industry is going to be, do that. Where's PTR going to be in 10 years? What do you see for your company and the vision for where it's going to be? Just more of the same, or are you looking at different ways to branch out? Or
So I think we're going to stay a specialized market research firm, because we don't believe in covering 100 different topics, different industries. We want to be specialized. You will see us specializing in the same industry, energy transition players, like helping from the equipment side, from the software side. Where I think we're slowly evolving towards is that we've been traditionally very good at hardware equipment, how the power grid segment, how the circuits are working with each other, and the technologies around that. So where we are evolving, and you would see us a lot more in the future, is on the software side as well, because that's where you see Because at the end of the day, today in the industry as well, it's less about transformers and switchgear, it's more about the complete solution, right? So you would see us doing a lot more solutions-oriented research, a lot more focused and including the software element of things as well, to kind of, like, it's kind of us evolving with the industry as well, right? How the industry is evolving, going more from product towards the solution side, you would see us doing more of the same as well, but we would stay specialized. As our customers have told us as well repeatedly over time that we like you because you're specialized, we want to stay specialized in the industry as well.
Okay, that's excellent. Hassan, thank you. It's a
Thank you,
delight to
Owen,
see you
for your
here,
time.
and thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much.
This has been an APC Technologies production, and we thank you for joining us. Our sponsors have been H2 Scan and Distributech. And of course, the communities of APC Technologies, which is Transform Technology, Power Systems Technology, Green Energy Technology, and Women in Power Systems. So thank you.